Okay, so now we're doing session 5. Now, budget. Now we're going to talk about a budget. Now, when we talk about budget, we're talking about the government budget, right? So remember, the only way the government gets money is because they collect taxes, right? And there's two things they do. They spend money and they give transfers. So the only revenue or the only income government gets is taxes. I want you to take note. From this tax it collects, it needs to spend money in the economy. That's your government spending, right? Which is G. And also it needs to spend transfers. Transfers it like gives money people to transfers, right? So G and T are both reduce the tax. So now this will make sense in our equation here, right? There we go. So the budget surplus is equal to your tax minus the government spending minus the transfers. That does make sense, right? If this is negative, it'll be a deficit. So although it says BS is equal to this, if this will give a negative answer, then this will be a budget deficit. So if you get an answer of negative 200, it'll be 200 deficit basically. So that's understandable. Now they further explain that TA, like how we did in our previous sessions, can be further explained. You can write it as TY, which makes more sense. The tax rate times the income in the economy will give you the actual tax. Makes sense, right? There we go, a negative budget surplus. So we get a negative figure as answer. You won't call it a budget surplus, you'll call it a budget deficit. Now the budget deficit graph is basically simple. Budget surplus graph is basically simple. Y is the income, right? So if there's more income in the economy, will you agree with me that there's more taxes in the economy? I mean, obviously, if people are making more money, the government is going to tax you. So the more income, your budget surplus increases, it goes up. That's good for the government. However, if your income is very less in the economy, the government is going to make a deficit. Makes sense, right? The government is spending 100 million, but it's only collecting 20 million tax. That's 80 million deficit. So all over here, see when income is zero, they're making like that much loss. And the whole loss is basically this part of the equation. So yeah, that's basically this graph. So the higher the income, the more taxes, the lower the income, less taxes. I mean, that's the logic over there, right? So, okay. So this is a budget surplus equation. You got that. Okay, what it says here. Suppose an increase in demand at level of output increase budget deficit as tax revenue goes up. Okay, so what they're trying to say over here is this, huh? Budget deficit depends on the government's policy choices, which makes sense. The higher the tax rate, the more the government gets money, so it can control its deficit if it wants a big deficit, small deficit, or whatever, right? And anything else shifts the level of income. So you must understand these things the government can control, how much of transfers it gives out. If it doesn't want a budget deficit, it doesn't have to give out transfers. You get what I'm trying to say? That was what I was trying to say. Okay, so now we come to a problem over here, right? Let's say if the government, which is this man over here, so the government puts in, just for simplicity's sake, 100 rand in the economy, right? So this is the economy. You all need to argue whether he will get 100 rand back in taxes. Will you agree with me if he puts 100 rand in, and if he collects 100 rand in taxes, then he's good. The government is good. The government does not make a deficit or a surplus. He's good. If the government puts in 100 rand, but he collects taxes of 200 rand, he's actually making a surplus. He's getting more than what he spent. Now, this whole thing now is an argument. So, must an increase in government spending, like 100 rand, an increase in government spending reduces the surplus? It makes sense. If the government increase 100 rand, will it reduce the surplus, but also increase the income so that it taxes more revenues? So you see, the argument is this, right? The government will put 100 rand, right? This will stimulate the economy. So the economy is going to produce a lot more income, and that income is going to be taxed. So it will be like the same as the income spent in. So this is a confusion here. Possibility that the tax collection is greater than the government spending, hence a budget surplus. So now they're saying it's possible. It's possible that the government will put 100 rand and it'll get income of 200 rand, which is the tax. It's possible because this 100 rand which it puts in, because of the multiplier and all that, there's more income in the economy. Everyone is doing good. Everyone is paying tax, so they'll actually get more out of it. So that's good. That's a surplus. So it's possible in real life. It's possible, but in South Africa, it's definitely not possible because they take all the money in the corruption over here. They put in fact, in South Africa, they put 100 rand in, they will come out with a negative 1,000. I'm genuinely serious because all the people here are corrupt. They take all the money, but in South Africa, it won't work. Right? Okay, effects of government purchases. Government purchases is the same as government spending, the G, right? The change in income due to the G is equal to. Now, what is this? This is a C multiplier we've been using. 1 over 1 minus 1, 1 minus C, is that MPC? 1 minus, so 1 minus C times your 1 minus T. That is our multiplier. And we times this by whatever autonomous expenditure, and this is the government. So if the government spends 100 rand, how much output will increase by? So we'll use this equation. So this is the exact same thing. AG stands for AG is basically this whole thing here, fraction. Okay, so now this just makes things complicated here. Literally, this whole equation makes it complicated. I will just memorize this end of this equation. How do I get it? Well, now remember they're forgetting the brackets here. In the example brackets, because you'll get the whole answer wrong because of power mass. Oh, wait, sorry, don't put the brackets there. The brackets supposed to go here. Yeah. So this and this is completely same. The only thing that's different is you got a 1 and here you got 1 minus C and 1 minus T. And then you got a negative. So literally just think of this normal equation over here, but just add the 1 minus C and 1 minus T on top and a negative. So what will this do? Okay, this will give you the change in the business surplus. The budget surplus. So if you want to know if the government puts in 100 rand, how much will the budget surplus change by? If it gives you plus 100 rand, that means it'll increase the budget surplus by 100 rand. If it gives you minus 100 rand, it's going to decrease the budget surplus, right? So 100 rand you put there, you put the tax rate, you put the multiplier, the MPC, and you just calculate it. It'll give you your final figure, either minus or plus. If any minus number will increase, decrease the budget surplus, any number will increase, right? Simple. Effects on government purchase and tax change on budget surplus. If you increase the tax rate, right? VAT, they wanted to increase it by 15 to 15.5. There we go, real life example. The budget surplus will increase. That's facts. Although there'll be less income in the economy because more people are paying tax. Because there's so much of people paying tax, if you increase the VAT or increase the tax rate, the budget surplus will actually increase. It'll generally actually increase. But here you get people that are unhappy. See, that's a problem. Budget, balanced budget. Now, what is a balanced budget? So you know how I told you, the government puts in 100 rand, and then the tax is 100 rand. So the budget surplus is 0, like it doesn't change. That's it basically. So the definition of this, right? So if the government spending and taxes is the same, taxes is tax collected. So if the government spends the same as taxes, so there we go. The government spends the same as taxes. So the government puts in 100 in the economy, it gets 100 in taxes. And the budget surplus is unchanged. Then this also means that the output increased by G. So that also means Y increased by 100 rand. So you can all make an equation here. Difference in y will be equal to the difference in the government spending, which is equal to the difference in the tax collected. So if there's a balanced budget, this is what will happen. The output will increase by the same amount of what the government put in the economy, and the taxes will be collected the same amount. So reality here, there's no deficits, there's no surpluses, it's literally zero. So like everyone is happy over here. You actually increased income or you increase output by not having a deficit or something bad for your budget. Your budget remains the same. So that's actually in the perfect economy what will happen. But obviously in South Africa again it won't happen. Now the full employment budget surplus. Full employment budget surplus is the budget surplus. Now this budget surplus is the same equation we were using all this time, just that it has stars over there to means full potential. So this is the budget surplus when the economy is in full potential. Yeah, so this basically, I mean, the only thing you need to know is this, right? This end. Yeah. Yeah. See this end? Okay, if I can go to the end. Okay. The cyclic component of the budget. The cyclic component of the budget, basically the difference between the budget now you do got versus the potential budget. So if you're in equilibrium and your budget is 100, so let's say your budget surplus in equilibrium is 100, but your budget surplus now is 110. Right? So now, right now, currently, now, if we were in equilibrium, we'll make a budget of 100 rand, right? Budget surplus in equilibrium. This is if we're assuming if our economy was in the potential GDP, if we were doing good in equilibrium, we would make 100 rand. So now we'll call the 10, the difference of this, the 10, a cyclic component. So the difference is a cyclic component. So let me just show you all this thing. See here? Cyclic components to a surplus. So the 10 will be a cyclic component surplus. You get what I'm trying to say? If this was opposite, if this was the potential and this was now, the 10 will be a cyclic component deficit. So a cyclic component, we're basically comparing what will budget surplus be at potential versus what will actually now. And that's a summary of everything over here basically. So that's session 1 to 5 done.